In the far future, when humanity had already spread across dozens of stars, there was one ship that carried the hope of Earth more than any other. That ship was called the Horizon. It was not the largest vessel, nor the fastest, but it was known for its fearless crew and the loyalty it inspired. Every soldier in the Terran Navy believed that if the Horizon was near, then humanity still had a chance. But then one day, during the height of the Galactic War, the Horizon vanished. The battle that night had been one of the bloodiest. Alien fleets, stronger and more numerous, had pushed into human space. Worlds had already burned, colonies were falling, and the Terran Navy was fighting with its back against the wall. The Horizon was sent into the middle of this storm with orders no human commander wanted to hear: hold the line at all costs. The crew knew the meaning of those words. They were expected to die. But the captain of the Horizon gave no speeches of despair. He simply looked at his officers, nodded once, and said, "We fight until Earth can breathe again." For hours, the ship battled against overwhelming numbers. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy beams tore through space. The Horizon struck back again and again, refusing to break, refusing to fall. Reports from other ships spoke of its bravery, of how it destroyed twice its weight in enemy vessels, of how it shielded damaged allies, of how it would not turn back even as its own hull burned. But then came the silence. The Horizon's signal vanished. No distress call, no wreckage, no escape pods, just nothing. One moment it was there, fighting with every ounce of human fury, and the next it was gone, as if the void itself had swallowed it whole. At first, human commanders believed the worst. The aliens must have destroyed it, vaporized the hull so completely that not even fragments remained. But alien reports told a different story. None of them had seen the final strike. None of them had claimed the kill. Some even admitted in whispers that the Horizon had simply disappeared. For years, Earth mourned the loss. The Horizon became both a tragedy and a legend. Statues were built in its honor, poems written about its final stand. Children were taught the names of its crew as heroes who had given everything, yet deep down, in every human heart, there was one burning question that refused to die. How could a warship, with all its metal and mass, simply vanish into nothing? Theories spread like wildfire. Some believed the Horizon had been pulled into a collapsing wormhole. Others claimed an alien weapon had erased it from existence. Conspiracies whispered that maybe the Terran High Command knew the truth and was hiding it. Among alien races, the rumors grew darker. Some said the humans had sent the Horizon into forbidden space and discovered something they were not meant to find. Others whispered that the ship had been taken by ancient powers that slumbered beyond the stars. But as the years turned into decades, hope faded. The galaxy moved on. Wars shifted, borders changed, new alliances were made, but the memory of the Horizon lingered like a ghost. In alien halls of power, the story was used to mock humanity. Look at the Terrans who lost their precious warship and never found it again. But in secret, many of those same aliens feared the unanswered mystery. What if the Horizon had not been destroyed? What if it was still out there waiting? On Earth, families of the crew never stopped searching. Scanners probed the depths of uncharted space. Explorers followed faint signals, always hoping, always disappointed. Still, every generation held on to the same stubborn dream, that one day the Horizon would return. And then, one night long after almost everyone had given up, the dream turned into something far more terrifying. At the edge of human space, near a colony that had once been attacked but rebuilt, sensors picked up a strange signal. It was faint, broken like a heartbeat buried in static. At first, technicians thought it was background noise, but when they adjusted the filters, their blood ran cold. It was the Horizon's identification code. The signal was impossible. It had been nearly 50 years since the ship vanished. The crew would all be dead by now, their bones lost to time. And yet, there it was. The code was exact, authentic, and undeniable. Commanders across Earth froze in shock. Was this a trick? A trap by alien spies? Or had the impossible finally happened? No one knew. But one thing was certain. The Horizon, the warship that had vanished without a trace, was no longer silent. It had returned, but no one was prepared for what they would see next. The galaxy had forgotten the Horizon. To most, it was just another ghost story told in hushed voices, a memory of a desperate age. But on that night, when the signal echoed across deep space, everything changed. The first eyes to see it were not generals or admirals, but young technicians stationed on a lonely colony outpost. Their scanners lit up with strange readings, energy, spikes that did not match any known ship. At first, they thought it was a sensor malfunction. Then the computer confirmed it. Terran Warship Horizon. Identification code 7A93. One of the technicians froze. He remembered the stories his grandfather had told him, stories of the warship that vanished before he was even born. With trembling hands, he replayed the signal again and again. It was real. When word reached Earth Command, disbelief spread like fire. Leaders, scientists, and soldiers all asked the same question. How could a ship gone for 50 years suddenly return? Many feared it was a trap. The aliens had used deception before, but deep in their hearts, humans could not resist hope. Could it truly be the Horizon? Could the lost warship have found its way home? A fleet was dispatched immediately. Dozens of ships set course for the coordinates. Civilians across Earth and the colonies tuned in to the broadcasts. Every soul waited, breath held, as humanity's greatest mystery prepared to reveal itself. And then it appeared. Out of the endless black, the Horizon emerged. But it was not the same vessel that had vanished long ago. Its hull, once scarred with battle damage, now shone with strange new patterns. Lines of light that pulsed like veins through metal skin. Its engines burned with a glow no human had ever seen before. The warship did not limp or drift. It moved with power, with purpose, as if it carried the strength of an entire world inside its frame. Gasps filled command rooms. Some whispered prayers. Others shivered with fear. It was the Horizon, yet it was more. The ship transmitted a single message across every human channel, its voice clear, steady, and impossible to ignore. We are humanity's shield. We have returned. The words echoed across the stars, and with them came both relief and dread. For if the Horizon had truly returned, then where had it been? What had happened in the black void of 50 lost years? And more importantly, what had changed it? Human ships surrounded the Horizon carefully, their weapons armed but not fired. Scanners tried to pierce its strange new armor, but every reading came back confused. The energy inside the vessel was unlike anything in known databases. Some scientists claimed it looked like the power of collapsed stars. Others swore it resembled technology from civilizations so old they were thought to be myths. No one could explain it. The aliens, however, felt the truth in their bones. Within hours, the news spread beyond human space. Across the galaxy, leaders of alien empires demanded answers. The same race they had mocked as fragile had now brought back something they could not understand. Fear spread faster than fire in a dry forest. What if this ship carried weapons that no shield could stop? What if humanity, once weak, now held the power to challenge them all? The first to test this theory were not cautious diplomats, but warriors. A nearby alien raiding fleet intercepted the Horizon, convinced it was still just a Terran ship dressed in strange metal. They thought they could capture it, study it, break it apart. The battle was short. In seconds, the Horizon unleashed its weapons, not missiles, not beams, something else. Blinding light tore across the battlefield, and entire enemy cruisers collapsed in silence. Their shields melted like ice under the sun. Their hulls split apart as if touched by invisible hands. The fleet was reduced to wreckage in less than a minute. Every human officer who witnessed the destruction stood frozen. They had never seen power like this, not from Earth, not from any alien empire. The message was clear. The Horizon had returned, and it was untouchable. But as the debris floated silently, one question grew louder in the minds of every human leader. If this ship had truly been theirs, then what had changed it so completely? Had the crew discovered ancient technology hidden in forgotten corners of the galaxy? Had they bargained with forces beyond mortal reach? Or had they built it themselves, surviving alone in the endless dark, pushing human will beyond the limits of imagination? For now, the Horizon gave no answers. Its captain sent no speeches. Its crew revealed no secrets. The only thing the warship offered was silence and the terrible proof of its godlike strength. Still, one truth was undeniable. The B ship that had vanished in humanity's darkest hour had returned in their time of need. It was not just a warship anymore. It was a symbol, a warning, and perhaps a promise. A galaxy that once mocked humans now trembled at the sight of their power. And for the first time in history, Earth was no longer seen as weak. The Horizon had come back. But what it brought with it was a mystery the galaxy was not ready to face. When the Horizon destroyed the raiding fleet in less than a minute, the galaxy held its breath. Many dismissed the event as luck. Some said the alien ships had been careless. Others claimed the Terrans were staging an elaborate trick. But those who had seen the wreckage knew the truth. This was no trick. This was power beyond reason. In Earth's high command, debates exploded. Some leaders wanted to welcome the Horizon back as a savior. Others feared it. What if the crew was no longer human? What if the ship carried something dangerous, something Earth could not control? Generals whispered that if the aliens feared the Horizon, perhaps even humanity should be cautious. Yet none dared move against it. For all their doubts, one fact could not be denied. The ship had returned when humanity needed it most. The aliens, however, were not willing to sit in silence. Within days, a coalition of hostile powers gathered a fleet. They were determined to test the Horizon, to prove it was not the invincible legend humans claimed. Dozens of battleships, cruisers, and carriers set out. Their leaders were confident. No matter what technology this Terran vessel had gained, it could not withstand the combined might of several empires. The Horizon waited for them in the shadow of a dying star. Alone, it stood against a wall of enemy ships. To the galaxy, the battle seemed hopeless. One ship against many was suicide. Even the bravest human captains watching from a distance whispered doubts. Could even the Horizon survive this? The aliens gave no warning. They opened fire with everything they had. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy beams cut across the black. Explosions bloomed around the Horizon like suns bursting to life. For a moment, it looked as though the ship was lost in the storm. Commanders on alien bridges shouted in triumph. Humans watching from afar lowered their heads in grief. But then the light cleared. The Horizon was still there, unbroken, untouched. The glowing lines across its hull burned brighter, pulsing like the heartbeat of a god. And then, it struck back. The ship did not fire weapons as humans once knew them. There were no cannons, no railguns, no familiar missiles. Instead, a wave of light spread outward, invisible yet unstoppable. Alien shields collapsed instantly, their systems fried. Entire warships lost power in seconds, left adrift like toys in a storm. Then came the second strike, a beam of white fire that cut through 3 battleships at once, tearing them apart. Before they even knew what had happened, panic filled alien fleets. Commands shouted through chaos. Some tried to retreat, others to regroup, but it was too late. The Horizon moved with precision, like a predator among prey. Every shot it fired destroyed. Every maneuver defied explanation. The alien coalition, mighty and proud, was shattered in minutes. From distant human ships, crews watched in silence. Some cheered, but most only stared in awe. This was not victory as they had known it. This was something else, something terrifying. When the battle ended, the Horizon stood alone among fields of drifting wreckage. Not a single enemy ship remained whole. Not one human vessel had been touched. The message was clear. The Horizon was not just back, it was untouchable. But with this demonstration came fear. In human colonies, crowds cheered the return of their lost warship. People celebrated in the streets, believing Earth had been given a weapon that could protect them forever. Yet, behind closed doors, leaders worried. If the Horizon could destroy fleets so easily, what could stop it if it ever turned against its own people? Among the aliens, fear turned to desperation. Empires that had once mocked humanity now scrambled to sign treaties offering peace where once they offered war. Others plotted in the shadows, seeking any way to understand or copy the Horizon's technology. Some even whispered of assassins and sabotage, anything to end the threat before it grew beyond control. But none could deny the truth anymore. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, now had a weapon that even the strongest powers could not face. The galaxy had seen the first demonstration, and it was enough to change everything. The Horizon, however, remained silent. Its captain gave no speech, its crew revealed no secrets. After the battle, the warship simply drifted away, as if the destruction it had unleashed was nothing more than duty. To the humans who watched, it was inspiring. To the aliens who feared, it was terrifying. Yet one question lingered louder than all others. Where had the Horizon been? For 50 years it had vanished into the void. And when it returned, it came armed with weapons that defied every law of science. Humanity demanded answers. Aliens demanded explanations. But the ship remained quiet, carrying with it only the mystery of its impossible power. Some believed it had traveled to another galaxy. Others swore it had fallen into the hands of ancient beings long forgotten. And a few, the most fearful of all, claimed the humans had unlocked something inside themselves, something that had been waiting in their blood all along. The Horizon's first demonstration had ended. The galaxy was forever changed. And somewhere, in the silence of deep space, the warship prepared for whatever would come next. The Horizon had returned as a god among ships, yet its silence was more unsettling than its power. The galaxy had seen the first demonstration, had watched fleets burn like paper in fire, but still no one understood how it was possible, and worse, no one understood what had happened to the crew. When human commanders first opened channels to the Horizon, they expected to see familiar faces aged by 50 long years. Instead, the faces that looked back were calm, steady, and unchanged. Men and women who should have been old were still young. Their eyes held the same fire as the day they vanished, but behind that fire was something else. Something alien, or perhaps something more. The captain stood before the cameras, his uniform, tattered but his voice unshaken. "We are the crew of the Horizon," he said. "We have returned to fulfill our duty." No explanation, no story of survival, just those words. But Earth demanded more. The Terran Council summoned the captain for a private meeting. Admirals, scientists, and leaders filled the chamber waiting, with questions burning in their throats. How had they survived for 50 years without food or supplies? How had they built weapons that no empire had ever seen? What force had touched them in the dark between stars? The captain listened in silence. Then he answered with a sentence that chilled everyone in the room. "We were not given this power. We earned it." The words echoed through the chamber like thunder. What did he mean? Earned it? Where? How? Slowly, piece by piece, fragments of the truth came to light. The Horizon, in its final desperate battle, had been caught in a storm of collapsing space. A weapon had ripped open the void itself, dragging the ship beyond known reality. The crew had not died. They had fallen into a place where time twisted and space had no end. A place some later called the abyss between stars. In that abyss, they should have perished. Their supplies should have run out. Their bodies should have failed, yet they endured. They scavenged the impossible, tearing apart the strange energies that swirled around them, forging new engines from storms of gravity, shaping weapons from the raw fabric of the void. What no alien empire had ever achieved, humanity's most desperate crew had built with their own hands. It was not a gift. It was survival. But survival had come at a cost. The crew spoke little of what they had faced. Their words hinted at shadows moving in the abyss, voices whispering in dreams, shapes too vast to understand. Some believed the crew had struck a bargain with beings older than galaxies. Others thought the void itself had taught them, reshaping their minds into something beyond human. But when pressed, the captain only repeated, "We survived because we refused to surrender. We built what we needed, and we returned stronger." Many in Earth's council wanted to celebrate them as heroes, statues, medals, endless praise. But there were whispers too, fearful whispers. Had the crew truly remained human? Or had the abyss changed them into something else? Their eyes seemed too calm, their voices too steady, their knowledge too vast. These were men and women, yes, but they were no longer ordinary. Among the aliens, the fear grew darker. They claimed the horizon had become cursed, a vessel of the void carrying death wherever it sailed. Some said the crew were no longer mortals but ascended beings wearing human skin. Entire empires began preparing for war, not against Earth, but against whatever the horizon had become. Yet for humanity, the question was more personal. Could they still trust their lost ship? Could they believe in those who had walked through the abyss and returned with the power of gods? Or had the horizon brought back something too dangerous for even Earth to control? The council debated, but in the end their choice was simple. The galaxy was still at war, aliens were still circling, waiting to strike, and the horizon, for all its mystery, had already saved them once, so they let the ship sail again. But as it drifted back into the black, its glowing hull splitting the darkness, one truth became clear. The horizon had not only survived, it had been reborn. Its crew carried secrets too heavy for words, its weapons defied every law of science, and its captain spoke with the quiet certainty of a man who had looked into the abyss and learned to master it. They were still human, but they were no longer the same. And in the silence of deep space, even their allies began to wonder. Was the horizon a savior, or the first sign of something humanity was never meant to unleash? The horizon sailed again, and every move it made shook the galaxy. Wherever its signal appeared, fear followed. To humans, it was a shield, a guardian, proof that no enemy could break them again. To aliens, it was a storm, a force too powerful to predict or resist. No one dared to ignore it. On Earth, celebrations erupted. People filled streets chanting the name of the lost warship that had returned. Families of the crew wept with joy, convinced their loved ones were alive, unchanged. But behind the celebrations lay unease. Leaders in secret chambers asked hard questions. Was the horizon truly under Earth's control? Or had it become something far greater, answering only to itself? The crew's silence only deepened the mystery. They gave no interviews, offered no details, and refused to reveal the full truth of their journey through the abyss. The captain's only words were steady and final. Humanity must be ready. The galaxy will soon test us again. And then came the test. A grand alliance of alien empires, united by fear, gathered a fleet the size of a small star cluster. They claimed it was defensive, but everyone knew the truth. They wanted to erase the horizon before it grew even more dangerous. Thousands of ships gathered, their weapons locked, their leaders ready to strike. For the first time, enemies who had fought each other for centuries now stood side by side, united only by their terror of one Terran warship. The horizon did not run. It emerged at the edge of the enemy's armada, one vessel against thousands. To any sane commander, it looked like suicide. But to the crew of the horizon, it was simply another trial. The battle began. Alien fleets poured fire into the void. Beams of plasma, oceans of missiles, storms of railguns, all crashing toward a single point. Yet the horizon moved through it like a ghost. Its glowing hull flared with impossible energy, bending and twisting the laws of physics themselves. Where the fire was thickest, it simply vanished, slipping between the cracks of reality. Then the horizon struck back. One blast of its weapons tore through 100 ships, leaving only shattered fragments. A second wave spread like ripples in water, shutting down engines and silencing weapons. Fleets that had once ruled sectors of space were reduced to powerless husks, floating in the dark. Alien commanders screamed orders, but nothing worked. Their strongest shields crumbled, their fastest ships slowed. Their numbers meant nothing. Against the horizon, there was no defense, no escape. In less than an hour, the grand fleet of the galaxy was broken. The survivors fled, their leaders swearing never again to face the Terrans in open battle. For the first time in history, the galaxy bent the knee, not to treaties or to politics, but to fear. Humanity had become untouchable. Yet within the victory, a question burned brighter than ever. What price had the crew paid for this power? They had survived the abyss, built weapons from the bones of impossible space, and returned with eyes that no longer looked away from darkness. Were they still human, or had they crossed into something beyond? The captain of the Horizon answered that question not with speeches, but with action. After the battle, he opened a transmission to every corner of human space and beyond. His words were simple, yet they struck the galaxy like thunder. Humanity does not vanish. Humanity adapts. We evolve, and we will never bow. Those words became the creed of a new age. Children repeated them in schools. Soldiers carved them into armor. Even alien spies who listened in could not erase their echo. The message was clear. No matter how many empires rose or fell, no matter what darkness lay beyond the stars, humanity would endure. But the Horizon story did not end there. After its final victory, the warship did not return to Earth. It sailed once more into the black, glowing like a beacon in the endless void. Some said it was hunting new enemies. Others believed it was seeking out the strange abyss it had once escaped. And a few whispered the most terrifying idea of all, that the Horizon was not protecting humanity from aliens, but preparing humanity for something even greater. The galaxy was never the same. Empires that had once mocked humans now treated them with caution, even respect. Former enemies sought alliances, desperate to share in the protection of the Terran shield. Yet behind every deal, every treaty, every handshake, fear lingered. For all knew that if ever humanity unleashed the Horizon fully, no power in the stars could stand against it. And so the legend grew. The lost ship that vanished in humanity's darkest hour had returned in their brightest. It had brought with it weapons of impossible power, secrets too deep to reveal, and a crew who had looked into the abyss and returned as something more. It was no longer just a warship. It was a myth, a warning, a promise. The Horizon. The ship that vanished. The ship that returned, the ship that changed the galaxy forever.